Let me take you back to that crisp October morning in our sleek Seattle offices, where the rain tapped softly against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. We were deep into prepping for the biggest pitch of our fintech startup's life, an $80 million round from top-tier VCs. The room smelled of fresh coffee and nervous energy. Derek Vance, our VP of Growth, sat at the head of the polished oak table, cufflinks gleaming under the recessed lights, flashing that million-dollar smile he'd practiced in every mirror from here to Bellevue. Marcus Hale was there too, in his usual spot at the far end. Marcus wasn't the type to command attention. Mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses, a navy sweater vest over a crisp white shirt, hair neatly combed but never styled. He spoke softly, methodically reviewing the compliance matrix for our cybersecurity platform. Line by line, he walked through risk assessments, data sovereignty clauses, and federal audit protocols. No flair, no buzzwords, just facts anchored in the fine print that kept our company insurable and investor-ready. Derek rolled his eyes, so hard I thought they'd stick. He tapped his pen against the table like a drumbeat of impatience. Come on, Marcus. Nobody reads the stuff in real time. We're selling vision here, not a textbook. The words landed heavy in the quiet room. A couple of the product leads chuckled under their breath. I was just a junior compliance analyst back then, fresh out of grad school at the University of Washington, still figuring out when to speak up. My stomach twisted, but I stayed silent. Marcus didn't react outwardly. He simply clicked through his laptop, uploaded the signed attestation file using his credentials, and leaned back. His expression stayed neutral, but there was something in his eyes, a quiet watchfulness, like a man noting the wind direction before a storm. You have to understand, Marcus. In the 3 years since Apex Dynamics launched our secure transaction platform, his name sat on every critical document. Not flashy LinkedIn posts or after-work happy hours at the local brewery. Marcus built the backbone, the compliance frameworks that made our $50 million series a possible, the encryption attestations that satisfied insurers, the policy trees that passed every regulatory review without a single red flag. Derek saw a sweater vest guy who didn't chase spotlight. He mistook restraint for irrelevance. That miscalculation was about to unravel everything we had built. As the meeting dragged on, Derek pushed for optimizations, trimming disclosures about our breach response timelines and data residency requirements. It cleans it up, he said, waving a hand. Investors want confidence, not caveats. Marcus stayed quiet, but I caught him cross-referencing the original clauses in his black leather notebook. He didn't argue. Instead, he validated the encryption threads tied to his custodial attestations, those intentional safeguards he'd designed years earlier, requiring his root signature to activate full coverage. While Derek rehearsed slick investor psychology lines in the mirror later that day, Marcus was in the archive uploading the unaltered version, time-stamped and secured. I should have spoken up then, but I was still green, intimidated by Derek's confidence and the hierarchy. Marcus caught my eye once across the table. That single glance carried a weight, patience mixed with foreknowledge. They always learn the hard way, it seemed to say. The rest of the team moved on, approving the modified deck. Risk shrugged it off as post-pitch verification. Marcus didn't fight it. He logged the variants quietly, copied himself on the encrypted backup, and watched Derek practice his pitch smile. He wasn't preparing for the presentation. He was preparing for the fallout. That afternoon in the break room, Marcus sat alone with a container of Greek yogurt, flipping through a printed copy of the original deck. No distractions, just deliberate page turns and notes in that notebook. The tension in his shoulders was subtle, like a builder inspecting beams before the house collapses. Derek, meanwhile, kept posturing in the halls, talking up bulletproof tech, to anyone who'd listen. The legal team deflected concerns with protocol jargon. And I watched, uneasy, sensing the undercurrent, but too junior to name it. By evening, the altered disclosures were locked in, federal compliance language softened to a vague bullet. Breach SLAs redacted. Marcus flagged it internally via email, requesting version history and approval chains. The reply was curt, VP as final authority per org chart. He responded simply, understood. Logging for records. Then the secure archive entry. Nobody noticed except him and me, because I'd started paying attention to his patterns. Derek wanted TED Talk energy. Marcus knew omissions weren't streamlining, they were liabilities waiting to explode. The investors weren't buying hype alone. They were buying the safeguards Marcus had architected around our platform. Without them, we were selling promises on shaky ground. As the days counted down to the pitch, the air in the office thickened with anticipation. Derek's cufflinks clicked louder, his rehearsed lines sharper. Marcus remained the steady constant, reviewing, attesting, building fail-safes that required his key. One quiet moment stood out, him double-checking metadata on his credentials, jotting a final note, closing the notebook with a soft exhale, like setting the final piece no one else saw. The storm was coming, but only Marcus seemed to feel the pressure drop. 2 days before the pitch, we gathered for final alignment. The conference room hummed with laptops and nervous energy. Marcus distributed printed compliance statements, paper copies, deliberate and traceable. Derek barely glanced before chuckling dismissively. Don't speak unless spoken to, he said with that slow, venomous drawl, leaning back like a king on his throne. Laughter rippled, enough to sting, not enough to seem cruel outright. The product guys smirked into their coffees. My stomach knotted harder. Marcus's silence wasn't defeat. It was observation, documentation. He took notes not to recall events, but to prove they happened. Afterward, he requested the final deck. When he opened it, his posture shifted almost imperceptibly. The breach detection SLA clauses were gone. Data sovereignty language stripped. Federal audit requirements replaced by meets all standards. It was tampering, plain and legal malpractice in Marcus's world. He emailed legal for clarification. Timestamped logs. Authority chains. The response, VP approval final. No debate. Marcus replied measured. Logging discrepancy. Encrypted backup sent. Subject line. Framework variance. I passed him later in the break room again. Alone. Yogurt untouched. Hard copy open. Scribbling steadily. The house was on fire. But no alarm sounded. Derek kept rehearsing catchphrases. Legal kept deferring. I stayed quiet, rationalizing it as hierarchy. But the patterns were clear. Derek trimmed for flash. Marcus anchored for integrity. In enterprise cybersecurity, omission wasn't optimization, it was exposure. Investors bought the safeguards Marcus designed, not slick slides. The night before the pitch, the team stayed late. Derek paced, practicing smiles. Marcus sat reviewing the original framework in silence. Posture calm, but eyes focused. Something built in him, a quiet resolve. You could sense it in those deliberate page turns, like waiting for others to notice the smoke. No one did. Pitch day arrived gray and drizzly, fitting Seattle's mood. The boardroom at our downtown venue gleamed, mahogany table, projector humming, investors from Zurich and Sydney funds seated like judges. Derek opened strong, voice slick, promising end-to-end coverage. No exceptions. Slides flowed, vision heavy, details light. I sat in the back, heart pounding. Marcus was at the far end, laptop closed, hands folded. 30 minutes in, The Zurich lead, a sharp woman with piercing eyes, leaned forward. Walk us through the attestation chain. Who's the policy owner on breach compliance? The room stalled. Derek faltered, glancing at legal. Then Marcus spoke quietly from the end. Clause 4.1 requires active custodial signature. That's mine. No gloat. Just fact. Derek went red. That's outdated. Revised last week. Marcus tilted his head. No reattestation logged. Derek slammed his palm down. Pack your things and go.
Now.
Silence vacuumed the air. Projector fan buzzed audibly. Investors stared, calculating. Marcus glanced at legal, a chance to correct. No one moved. He nodded once, closed his laptop with a soft click louder than any shout, straightened his cuffs, and walked out. Door closed behind him like a chapter's end. Derek cleared his throat, tried recovering, but the damage was structural. Marcus wasn't just a reviewer, he was the policy spine. The reason insurers engaged. Fired mid-pitch after stating the framework wasn't active without him. The light dimmed in the room. We didn't grasp how far yet. The investor repeated. Where's the key signatory? Neutral.
Cutting.
Eyes darted to legal. Derek shrugged, still riding arrogance high. Just compliance. Teams handling it. But Associate Counsel Sarah reached for the printed deck. Fingers trembled, flipping pages. Custodial owner, M.
Hale.
Air shifted. No one breathed. Sarah scanned further. He owns the policy. Insurance. Audits. Affidavits. All tied to his signature. Architecture doesn't validate without it. The Sydney investor spoke. You fired the strategist on record, contradicting your claims. Now the docs may be invalid. Sarah confirmed. Never reattested since his last update. His key is root. Without it, void. Derek's jaw clenched. Hand hovering near phone. Reality landed. The airtight framework sold was locked behind the man he'd ejected publicly. They tried cool at first. Zurich requested digital confirmation, timestamps, hashes. Sarah pulled up the system at the console. Fingers flew confidently. Then froze. Screen demanded custodial key. Derek snapped. Use default override. Admin credentials. Sarah looked horrified. That's not how Marcus built it. Attempts failed repeatedly. Custodial signature not detected. Access denied. Infrastructure head Rick arrived. Still mid-protein bar. Derek demanded override. Rick scanned. Hard lock. Multi-factor chain tied to Marcus's biometrics and revocation sequence. Designed tamper-proof. The dread settled quiet, not screams. But power shifting. The door wasn't just closed. It was engineered to stay shut. The framework we'd hyped as bulletproof depended on the one person Derek dismissed. Panic brewed beneath professionalism. Investors folded hands. Expressions turning to calculation. Legal triaged. CTO stepped out. Derek vanished briefly. The pitch imploded not with shouts, but realization. We'd sold safeguards we no longer controlled. At 7:46 p.m., 2 hours post-implosion, I lingered in the office amid stunned execs wandering like shipwreck survivors. General Counsel Sarah slipped into the dim conference room. Phone to ear. I couldn't hear fully, but her face, tight, rehearsed, desperate, told everything. She led with charm. Hey, Marcus. How are you? His reply cut. Personal or company? She hesitated. Conversation? Marcus was direct. Do you need the protocol reattested? Silence.
Yes.
Investors won't proceed. Sloan, Derek said you could. Marcus. Curious, not bitter. Do you? Sarah pushed. Deal on hold. Need validation by Monday. You're registered owner. Marcus laid terms calmly. full indemnity against modified debt claims, consultant status at partner rates. Authorship rights retained. Derek's immediate removal. His presence nullifies integrity. Sarah whispered difficulty. Marcus. My signature requires it. No rant. Just checklist. He'd anticipated this. Building leverage through silence and precision. Next morning. Board reconvened tense, no banter. Derek's name crossed out. Marcus entered without ceremony. Gray sweater same as firing day. Legal stood in respect. Chair noted. Reintroduction of Marcus Hale. External consultant. He plugged encrypted drive. Screen lit with full compliance tree green. Verified.
Real time.
Zurich leaned in. Marcus explained. Original framework updated. Air-gapped for integrity. Deal revived on facts. Not flair. Investors leaned because they believed. No cheers, just exhaled tension. Official notice. Derek separated for cause. Unauthorized mods. Improper termination violating clauses Marcus had written years prior. Internal memo reinforced custodial authorship in all materials. No hiding foundations. Board offered Marcus reinstatement. Bigger title. Triple pay. Staff. Corner office. He declined. I don't work for silence anymore. I work by agreement. Philosophy clear. No more summoned in crisis than erased. He'd been forced visible. Now terms were his. Retainer consulting on timeline. Contracts. Legacy embedded in code. Unerasable. New division launched quietly. Secure compliance frameworks. Certified standards. Footer of every packet. Certified by custodial architect Marcus Hale. No ceremony his way. Onboarding required signatures. Database locked metadata. No clause live without name. Overheard later, new analyst asked, Who's Marcus Hale? Name everywhere, but not on chart. COO replied simply, The reason this company still exists. Fact. No embellishment. Legacies aren't loud. They endure in unbroken systems Marcus built right, protocols unbendable by ego, unhijackable by ambition. When erased, the framework spoke. Influence sways rooms, authorship endures. You can't fake foundations with a name burned in the ledger. Marcus knew what he built. The compliance manual's final page centers one understated line, certified by custodial architect M.
Hale.
Delete a name from a room, but never from the page constructed. And in that quiet truth, the company, and we, learned respect for the steady hands holding real power. What would you have done in Marcus's place? The question lingers, haunting every boardroom decision since.